How to get no doc business loans and business lines of credit up to $100,000 and even more than that, plus 0% interest business credit cards for 6 to 18 plus months. You can liquidate the cash out of these and use them for what you need, like purchasing property, down payments. You have equipment you want to purchase. You have growth and expansion on this side with marketing and advertising for payroll, utilities, rent, mortgages, certain bills, inventory. The list can go on and on. And you're going to get a lot of this. I'm going to be switching over to a different share screen in a second and showing you certain banks to turn to. What are they looking for? What are the requirements? What should you have going into this? And this being stated income, a soft pull on one side of this that you're going to see is going to be very like intriguing, that it might be your first time hearing this, or maybe you've heard it somewhat in the past that these banks may do this, but you're uncertain if you should turn to them now or will they really work for you. So before I get into that, just so you know, my name is Michael with Viral Funding Solutions. I'm a business funding expert, a business owner like yourself. I was once there in a 9 to 5, whether you are there now or not. But all those obstacles and roadblocks, trying to get through them and to your outcome, there are a lot of gray areas that you go through as a startup, trying to figure out the formation of the business first before any kind of funding comes into view. Whether it's your own personal savings, it's a friend or a family member taking money out of your checking account, not your savings, or you don't even have the right accounts. And there's so much that can put a burden on you and many others. And another thing you have to understand is why you're doing this. Why should you go for business credit cards? How about business lines of credit? Everybody has a different need. You have a different business, perhaps in the same industry, subset, a competitor of, and you're trying to just mitigate your risks, have enough emergency funds, have enough working capital, enough operating cash flow, free cash flow. You have your money too much tied into inventory, certain expenses, equipment, a lot of other things, suppliers. You need to restructure those contracts. So I'm able to help in many more ways than just funding. I've helped out a lot of businesses and owners, not only on a business level, but in themselves as a person, in health and relationships. I care a lot about you and evolving and growing as a person. And in your business, when I look at that and I go, here's the cash flow, here's our current, here's what it could look like hypothetically, here's what we need to free up, here's our profits, here's our EBITDA, this is what we need to work on increasing this revenue stream and doing a lot more that I've done for many people. And in case you were wondering, and we'll jump into the share screen here in a second, is why Viral Funding Solutions? Well, for one thing, there are too many online marketplaces out there that you are unaware about and you probably come across and are still to this day unsure about whether you have the right personal or business relationship with. Do they really care about you? They're just a lot of the times looking at you as a number. They turn this information and they send it off somewhere else. These are things you may not know or are aware about. And then you're getting bombarded email after emails, even institutions sending you business credit cards telling you, hey, I can get you a business line of credit. And they send you the numbers and it's like 250, 500,000. You go, of course. And then you still have to validate the legitimacy of it. So you have to be very well calculated when it comes to getting funding of any kind. And I work with all types, SBA to ground level startups. I've helped out a lot of industries of different backgrounds, shapes, and sizes. And so with Viral Funding Solutions, able to help you mitigate those risks and all of those mistakes that I was making in the beginning, because I've been there. Some of us have been there, of course, a majority have. And we find out, there's a better way to do this to leverage getting maximum funding, better terms at better rates. If I went to this lender instead of that one, that would have been more helpful. And the relationship is there strategically, not only short term, but longer term. And I have that for many, and I help you out with that partnership. And very quickly, why people would turn to me, if you're asking that, and this is your first time, I'm very loyal. I'm an introvert. I speak less. In this video, you'll see me speaking because I'm on video, but I'm more of a reserved, not 100% shy, but more to myself. I'm very analytical. So where I get my keep and where I get a lot of my fulfillment, besides helping you and understanding all of this and getting it for myself, what you're about to see here, is that I am able to look at the documents. That's where I love doing my work. Is I'm very cerebral, where you can just keep me in a room in front of a computer, paperwork on hand, physically or on screen, and I review bank statements, profit and loss, balance sheets, debt schedules, tax returns, all of this stuff. There's many more things depending on the service that we go into, whether it's high, medium, or low doc or no doc, like you're about to see here. So let's go back into this share screen. And another thing too, if I didn't say this, it's also not only because I'm a loyal and I'm a Libra. We're more well balanced, and I'm not a salesy type person. I come from a academic background, and I went to school. I educated myself, studied a little bit of sociology, played Division I soccer, transferred into chemical engineering as my mind mathematically, systematically works. And then I made a big decision later on after many classes there to get into business because I wanted to start a business eventually. I've worked in construction, manufacturing in my younger 20s, warehousing, retail, worked in other roles. Financial logistics was one of my later positions. And as I'm switching screens here, I'll share a little bit more. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure this goes over. Yeah, I've worked in those various roles, and I've helped out a lot of people on a financial logistics level there, and working a lot of data, numbers, budgeting, inventory, also lifting up media boxes and having a service. And that company ended up going down under. I had to go back on unemployment benefits, food stamp cards, and it wasn't a good feeling at the time. I felt like I really couldn't give my 100% to my family, even going out for a family meal or just myself, even splitting it 50-50 when I knew I could. It just didn't feel right for me, and I was very conservative, and in a way still am with what I do. And I help out a lot of people within the community, so I give back and I do this appropriately, just so you know. So one of the places that I've turned to that many of you can turn to is a key bank, as you see here on your screen. And I'm going to be guiding you through what they have and potentially what they don't have, and how you can replace that with a different type of bank. So whether we're doing regional, we're doing larger banks, and we're doing community-backed banks and more. Another thing that I'm going to give you that I didn't say is, if you stick with me, I'm going to share with you how to get 50K to 250K and what the actual banks are looking for and what they're not sharing with you. So please stick with me for that. We're going to try to go through this as quickly as possible. But Key Bank is a great place to turn to, even if you don't have a banking relationship with them. It's one of the many sources myself and many of the clients that I've helped out where you can just go in. The best thing to do is that, and it's selective depending on the states you're in. So there may or may not be there. But I'll show you a way to build something with the registered agent and have a foreign entity. And I'll break down some of the details to that a little bit later in case you're looking to have a relationship with them in a different state. You're operating in California, or you're in Nevada, or you're in Florida, or wherever it is, but you want to have a relationship with them in another state to form a registered agent in a foreign entity. This is not a loophole per se, I want to say, but it's going to give you more access. And this is how you start getting approved for even higher amounts and even more repetitiously in less time. So Key Bank is one of the great places to turn to. Again, you don't have to have a previous relationship with them. What I would recommend you do, and as I've done and many others, is use a banking relationship manager. That's where you want to turn to. Let me shift screens here now that you saw that part. Let me put it on this screen. So we will go into their business credit cards to start with, but they also have their business lines of credit that I want to actually go over here for. And just 1 second. Let's start off here first, because the premise of this is business loans and lines of credit, and then we'll get into their 0% interest business credit cards. And keep in mind that we can try to do a combination of these two with just the soft pull. And the soft pull is a huge leverage when you're trying to get multiple cards and lines of credit from other institutions, and that they're pulling from Equifax. So we can combine the two into one. It's like when you go in there, you open up an account with them, excuse me, and then you get the interest in the business credit card and the cards there. And then the next step is to go for a business line of credit. And I'll go into some of the parameters and the expectations here. So past the last part I was going to get into, and let's get into this right away. So the overview here that you see, the term is renewable every 12 months. The minimum loan amount that you would be able to take is $10,000 on that. $500,000 is the maximum limit. The minimum monthly payment, it varies. Payment is calculated based on the product, loan amount. It's a revolver, so that'll readjust month over month, or how fast you pay it down to 100% or a little bit, and then you take more out to use. What I do want you to know is don't expect to get 500,000, especially as a complete startup. And a lot of this, like I didn't mention too much earlier, but stated income, especially with the 0% in their lines of credit, that will work in your favor. And I'll get into some of the LLC stuff, what should be seasoned, and a little bit of that. But I normally recommend making sure that you have an LLC at the very minimum to have. Other institutions would like you to have 3, if not 6+ months. And I'll get into some of the other alternatives here after we're done with KeyBank. But to get this amount, to even get over 50,000 with their no doc, you are going to have to supply tax returns, P&L, balance sheet, all this other stuff, 2+ years minimum, even 3+ years. And if you don't have that, or if it's not completed, because I know a lot of you, I work with business owners every day, just in case you didn't, or you're just dropping in, or you're just fast forwarding to this part. I help out people with all services: business credit, personal credit. There's collateral, cash flow backed, business trade credit. There's a variety of things we can do. Creative credit-based financing on the cash flow component, collateral, business trade credit. And the business credit that I didn't get into earlier, the why behind it is because you want to separate your personal from your business and eventually let your business stand on its own 2 legs, not only one, where you're crippling it now because you're taking on a lot of personal debt to make up for the fact that you don't have business credits. It stacked or business credit evolving. And there's trade credit. There's also revolving credit, like we're getting into here. And I'm going to leave for you more resources, a free business credit building video series down below that many people have taken advantage of and used. I have video content that I put in that, and then extra resources for you to pick up and what I've been able to use a specific system as well. So it's very helpful. It's free to get access to. I'll leave information of that. And if you need to get your credit repaired, if you guys need help with that at any point, I'll leave information down below. And there will be a questionnaire form. This is your first time. People tend to love this. I'm very analytical. I have my systems, my processes. When automation is needed, it's needed, not 100%, of course. But there's this questionnaire that if you fill out, you'll get a highly personalized and customized email response with your best funding option and options, thoroughly broken down like nobody else's business, detail per detail. I've iterated this thing for so many years. Again, I'm a very analytical person, cerebral, so you can only imagine what will be in this. You'll get information that is not even publicly released out into the public, extra content on business credit cards, poor, fair credit, good credit cards. And I'm going to show you at the end of this video certain cards that we can try to stack on top of one another to get you the most on top of business lines of credit. So that'll be in your best interest. That's where I would begin. And I can even package this video in there and a few other pieces of content. So you got to see that. So anything 50,000, 200,000 plus, you would want to ideally have the time in business, the depositing frequency. A lot of these banks, whether they tell you a certain amount or not, they want you to have established deposits. They want you to continue to deposit. They see the withdrawals are coming out too. Now, depending on how much activity happens, that's a whole different story. A lot of them would like to see a few thousand, a $2,500 deposit, 5,000. But just having something open on the business and business checking and the savings, that's what you want to have with this one, as well as with other banks out there. So you have that relationship starting to build, and they're seeing you getting deposits into those accounts. That's where I earn my bread and butter, guys. Like, think of me, I'm not working in the bank at this moment, but independently reviewing a lot of documents and files when we go to private lenders and investors, even banking type of setups, then that's what I'm able to calculate and do very well in. So here, the features: 24/7 access to funds, secured and unsecured lines as well. So if you can't get an unsecured line of credit, there is secured. Competitive pricing, monthly payments with interest-only payments, hassle-free renewal. You may be eligible for an SBA guarantee. There's different services out there, perhaps 12 to 24 months in lines of credit. And the thing to note, if you can't get these right now, there are alternatives with secured credit cards. If I were to do this all over again, like yourself, I had problems in the beginning having a startup using a personal account. Now I then later on got into business checking, the whole formation of the business correctly. all of that stuff. And I can help you with that as well. It's in the free business credit building video series. More or less, it'll be all in there. But getting all this together, I figured out that, okay, maybe a Capital One Spark card isn't the direction to go. Maybe it's not right to go to a Capital One to get a secured card for certain ways where they pull and what they're going to be looking at the activity in the accounts or the activity of what you had previously, as in the cards and other things that you've built up in history. And so a lot of that factors in. So maybe you go to a Discover card. A Discover card is very useful. Been there. I don't use it anymore pretty much. And then you can turn this into an unsecured card. And then you can use and leverage a credit union, let's say a very popular one. And what I've used, my brother has used, my family has, is like a Navy Federal. And so you can stack the two on top that are secured cards, and you have a deposit in those. That'll be very helpful. I would always recommend, if you're getting secured cards, to start off with at least 5,000. Many of them would rather have that. Not that they always give you a number, but to make it worth your investment, because if you put a little bit in, it depends on how much money you're going to be needing and using, of course, but just be very calculative in your approach and don't think, oh, I don't have any more money to use. I have something in the next 3 to 6 months. I needed an additional $25,000 to $50,000 that you cannot get, whether it was from the hard pull, too many hard pulls recently, or other things factor into play. These all things, guys, credit, cash flow, collateral, I check extensively. Soft pulls, hard pulls, I go through all that myself and or with my team. Just depends on how much I need to get done in a day and what I need to come back to. Sometimes I'll let them do it. They take care of that. Then I get the feedback, or I go do that completely. So there's quite a few of that. And all this information, again, guys, to get in touch, I'm going to leave for you down below in the description. So now let me move on over to the business credit cards. But that's kind of an overview for that. And we can try to pair these up together as you go in. And again, there's no previous relationship that you need to have with KeyBank. So that's a huge plot there. And again, just to remind you, this is an Equifax soft pull internally. Let me go into some of the cards, and then I'll get into some of the credit requirements and what documents you should have on hand. And then we'll go into another bank here shortly. And just so you know, and I didn't put this here, let me go ahead and show you this, because they are selected within those states. And here is an overview. I could have just mentioned them all, but I just want to show you to make sure you know that it is there and listed, anything from Alaska down to Washington. And that's where I'm at. So one big thing that you may see here that's not listed, it's California. And then New York is, though, but California is not. And that's a downside for many in a huge populous state. But I'll show you other ways of working things and with other places to go to. But back to the small business credit cards, there's a personal side of this equation that we won't touch much upon. But here you have the KeyBank Business Cash Rewards card, and then you can earn up to 2% cash back purchases. And keep in mind, guys, again, that you want to build your business credit. I've seen it so many times, not to go off on a tangent. I don't do that too often at all. I'm less of a talker, like I said. I want you to make sure you have this. But your business credit portfolio, that's going to amount to then getting online bank term loans, online bank lines of credit. You have the SBA loans, even some equipment loan lenders at a higher tier. When you do revenue-based loans at advances that are lower docs, those normally don't require any kind of business credit to go in. And a lot of these don't require you to have established business credit off the get-go. So you'll be okay with that. They're more than willing to help you build that credit profile with them. And so keep that in mind, that it'll also give you access to higher tiers of funding. At a point, you're going to maximize, well, not as in utilization, because you can usually turn that up and not have it affect your personal credit and your usage. But you're going to get to a point in your business where you're in the growth and expansion mode, where you don't have enough cards or you can't get enough more of. There's certain hard pull inquiries you're limited on. You don't have enough revolving accounts. I'll get into some of this stuff later, and I've already created content on this, and I'll share with you a lot of the stuff that the lenders don't share with you by filling out that questionnaire form. And so having enough revolving accounts matters. Installment revolving, trade lines. Some lenders want 5+ trade lines. Others want 2 open revolving accounts with an age history of 2+ years. Having closed accounts hurts you. If you don't have 2 open revolving accounts and you have one, you have an age mortgage of 2+ years. You have 1 open revolving account with the age of history about sometimes 1. In this market, you see a lot of 2. 4, you double it, it's better. Every time you double it, the better you get with your age history. And what it makes up of your credit score and making sure that you have enough credit worthiness. We look at a lot of that, especially at a higher tier. So I don't want to get too much into depth on all that. That's for another time. And I've helped out people with a lot of this stuff. Unlimited cashback, no expiration, no categories. This one does come with 0% APR, but for 6 months. So that's not a bad thing at all. When you think about what you're getting from KeyBank, when you think about opening up an account with no previous relationship like all others would like you to have, like a Bank of America, a lot of the times you're going to want to see like 2+ years. Other banks out there want that 6+ months, more or less. And they're going to ask for a seasoned LLC with 2+ years, if not 3+, 6+ months. So KeyBank gives you a lot of that advantage that you wouldn't get from other places. So even if it's just 6 months, the purpose of this is how do you use the funds? Don't take money. I see all of these complaints where people go into the comments on certain credit cards, and I've read through them, and I go, well, they didn't use the money correctly. Oh, well, I got a lot of money I got to pay now. Well, whose fault is that? That's not the credit issuer or the bureau's fault. Who is it? That's yours. So you have to be calculative in how you use this money. Which cards should you use more than most? Why can't you use this one just enough of? And so understand that if I'm going to put money into inventory, I want to free up inventory that I have. I actually need more inventory. I couldn't liquidate enough. I got a different supplier. So I'm going to need at least 3 months of money on reserve, while these next 3 months, I'm going to be putting at least 100,000 into inventory, but I can start off with 25,000. I can start off with 10 to 15,000 and then move up from there. I have to be cautious of that. What stays on the shelf, what doesn't. And then I have marketing and advertising, another $10,000 that I need to put in that for the next couple of months, where I'm spending close to $2,000 to $2,500 or so per month. I've done this stuff, guys. I have a digital marketing agency. If I didn't say this, a lead generation business. I have one in the health affiliate marketing, done a lot of things with vitamins and supplements. I have one right in front of me down below that's very, very popular, and I've helped out a lot of people with fiber and proteolytic enzymes. I've had back issues myself before. Ergonomic desk chairs, the seat cushions, all of this stuff included, just so you guys know that I run multiple businesses and this is my primary focus. And why, again, people turn to me, because I'm very loyal, transparent. With me, you don't have to worry about trust. I'm usually having to worry about that on the other end. I talk less, like I said, I do more. So let's get through this. So 0% APR for 6 months on purchases and balance transfers. Balance transfers must be made in the first 60 days of account opening to qualify for the introductory APR. So keep that in the back of your mind there. After that, the variable APR will be somewhere between 18.99% or rounded to 19% to about rounded 29%, but exact 28.99% based on your credit worthiness, as is everything in different types of products too. I even see that in revenue-based funding, lower credit, different underwriting guidelines, and more. There's a welcome offer of a $200 bonus cash back on $1,000 spent in your first 60 days. So that amounts to here on the balance transfers within the 60 days. So that's a huge benefit. And rewards are there. The KeyBank Business Rewards Card, you see 0% interest APR there. And then you see the other one here with the regular KeyBank Business Card APR 6 months there. And a little bit more of details and lower rates included in that one for more of a regular and a lower entrance points. What you always get from them: secured online business banking, fast, easy payments, no cost employee cards, all of the benefits there that you would need from the card. And then there are some questions here, as in why use a small business and or personal credit card? Like, that doesn't have to be explained. Like, this is very obvious. I don't even have to go off this. I can give you my own too on top of this. But keep your business and personal finances separately. And even when you have an LLC, you're less of a liability, and your business is taking a lot of that quote unquote default to fall back on. Not that it'll default, but it'll fall back on itself. Bankruptcy and other components there that won't affect necessarily 100% the personal side. And then when we have to remove things from the personal side, with the personal or business bankruptcy, then we can look at things a little bit different. But with bankruptcies alone, guys, you don't want to have any bankruptcies at all showing on your credit report, period. Chapter 13.7, it does not matter whether it was just something with the card. I go through this with a lot of people every day. I kid you not. When I help out a lot of people, and again, there's that full transparency with me. The knowledge is what people love to tap into. And when I'm not here, I'm reviewing documents. This morning, it's already 12:33 p.m. This morning, every morning, I usually review documents. I have a handful on my desk, on my computer to go through. and I give people educated responses back to everything they need to know. I'm not just this guy or this person in the front being the informational guy. I'm actually using my brain, analytically speaking, to review documents, review credits, and much more. And I just want you to make sure you know that. Building your business's credit rating. And the whole business credit rating and internal score with certain, like, more so community institutions, that's a whole different topic of its own. But making sure you have enough of that membership experience, and you've probably done a few things in activity with them, and it'll help build your internal score. And there's more that factors into that. But convenience spending, rewards, and employee expenses. What should I look for in a small business credit card? Special offers, APRs and fees, rewards, annual fees, protection benefits. What do I need to have when I apply for a small business credit card? There's a little bit of there. And there's a little bit of that, more or less, that you have to be cautious and aware about when you're filling out. Here, let me move this. Sorry. It's probably, I think that's why. Oh, I was wondering why it was like the screen on the left side was black. It's because of the actual page that we are on. But you will want to have your documents ready and on hand to make sure that all that is there, ready to go. You don't want to, at the very last second, go in and find out that they requested something, or you submitted it, but you would have had to do it another way, and you should have added a different type of an ID, like a passport. I would use a passport. I've done this myself. I almost went in with an ID, but a passport is helpful because a lot of this stuff is selective within states. And so when they see that you have a passport, that is more of a nationwide. That's more of not a strictly a state thing. That's more of an all-around type of thing. So they won't limit you to one location. And if you went to a spot where they wouldn't accept you, that wouldn't work well. And so you've already tried with them. Next thing you know, you may have to go to another location, and you don't want to have to be doing that. So on top of that, like I said before, making sure you have a business checking and savings account open with them, and that can happen along the way. The passport, that's what I would do to have an unsecured doc. What they're going to want from you a lot of the times are articles of organization, Secretary of State, all of this stuff to make sure that you are a business, and in a business in good standing, good morals, and you are legitimate. And not that the bigger banking institutions would do this, but many of them would want to verify that you have a website, that you have a social media presence, that you're somewhere found online. So they're not just saying, hey, this is a fictitious name. They're operating underneath another company, or this company that was once named this changed banks. Now they're underneath a different name. I can't tell you how many times I've had to deal with that, not only on the credit side with clients, but on all revenue based. And there's ways to work that through or not. And it also depends on the bank, because there are certain, like, online banks you don't want to be a part of and what they won't accept. So you have to be cautious of a lot of this stuff. And then having the registered agent or with the billing address that you could get from where it comes from, and then the physical address. I'm going to go into that in a little bit here. Have an LLC. That's what I would recommend to have with them. You don't want to have more than 3 new accounts open in the last 6 months. That's very standard across the board. You're going to see for many. Again, that is the part that most people fall back and they can't get approved. It's not because of the LLC. Normally, it's not because they can't support having the documents, the business tax ID or whatever they need to supply. It's because they have too many inquiries or they have too many new accounts. If you have too many new accounts, that's what right there is going to hurt you the most. Even with personal loans, with a combination of other cards, I see it every single day. 6, 7 inquiries in the last 3 months. In a personal loan setting, sometimes we could accept no more than 6 inquiries in the last 3 months, and you're going way above. We're trying to give you some room. With other card issuers and other accounts, we want no more than 4, no more than, in a lot of these, they're not going to want no more than 2 to 3 inquiries per bureau in the last 6 months to get even a higher amount. And when you go out there and get other cards that are no PG, which is going to be hard for many of you, don't expect to get no PG cards. That's not the way you want to work this through. You want to be accountable and be responsible. But that's in the last 6 months, no more than 3 new accounts, no more than 2 hard pulls. Usually I see in the last 6 months, no more than 2 to 3 max, but 2 is really it. No more than 2 hard pulls in the last 6 months. And I'm getting a lot of this too from using and also from understanding internally. But Those are up to 50K normally that you can get on the business line of credit and also on the business credit card and or cards, usually one and one. And then later on, you can request a limit increase, and whether that works or not in time, that's a whole nother question and polls from that end. So that's the majority of this that I wanted to mention on that. I believe I've covered that. I'm checking just some quick notes here and as well as here to make sure. There's extra added information if you would have to supply information to get more than 50,000, more than 100,000 in a lot of cases. Articles of organization, like I mentioned. What I didn't say here, and I've done this so many times, but with an EIN letter, you want to prove that you have an EIN, but the EIN letter too is what's going to be showing it that it is there, and the papers are all there included. And I collect that from a lot of people. The passport I covered. Having a virtual business address. I'm not going to type it in right now because I'd have to switch in screens, but you can go over to like a Regis, and this is where the whole plot of using a foreign entity comes into play. That you can go to Regis and open up an account with them, have an actual virtual office. There's a virtual address. People get this wrong all the time. They try to get just a virtual a virtual address because maybe their business is operating mostly online. Maybe you have an e-commerce business and a lot of the things you do are direct to consumer. And so you have a site with all of your products and now how you're getting those products and then for what amount. There's a whole other side to this that I won't get into. But you want to establish yourself eventually as a foreign entity, have a registered agent within the state. So you can do a quick search on like Washington registered agency or registered agent, and then go about filing that and getting that completed. So to get funding in all 50 states, you do want to have a foreign entity. Bottom line, you do want to have a business address. Let's just take care of that first before we focus on having this whole foreign entity set up. So some institutions, though, they are geographically dependent that you have that within their state, that you're located there, and they're going to require you to live or to do business in that certain area while asking for you to supply a zip code to screen you, or they'll do it themselves to make sure that that is all there. You can't lie to them. Don't do that. This will be discovered. It's like when I get a lot of this, I go, that's not it. What are they not telling me? And with me, you can be open. It's confidential between you and I. So one way to get around all of this is to do a foreign entity. You take your LLC and that's already established and register it to another state in which you wish to then get funding. So you can go to multiple locations, and then you would want to get the virtual address or virtual office with that, and then apply for business credit cards or loans, lines of credit, or all three from a single bank. And that's how you maximize your limits. You can get an approval here with a disclaimer, of course, but 20,000. Then there's one with 50,000. Then you have one at 5,000 with 0% interest. Now you're getting to 100,000, even without relying for that business line of credit. And if I didn't mention this, the business loan part, I know everybody's looking for a lump sum. Everybody's like, where are the lump sums? I should have addressed this, excuse me, but it's hard to just get an EIN only or no PG, no doc business loan per se. Everybody's looking for a lump sum for like 25 or 30 years. They're comparing it to an ARM home mortgages. They're comparing it to an EIDL loan. They're comparing it to a 30-year fixed commercial mortgage or an up to 25-year. There's a balloon rate period or an interest rate only period, depending on if you're building a ground up construction project and you need something in form of a real estate build. Now that's a little bit different. That's a whole different topic. But it's so important that you understand all of these little details that come in. And if you don't, and you try to do things on your own without understanding it 100%, that can fire backwards on you. And yeah, that's what I wanted to mention on that. So there's a little bit more. Let me go back into this document. And so the business loans, those don't normally work that way. And you would have to normally PG them. And of course they come with interest rates to start off with. Not like you can delay it for weeks on end. That's not how those work, especially when there are no guarantee or personal guarantee and no collateral type of loans. But I believe I've covered everything here on this side. So there are more business lines of credit than it is no doc business loans per se, term loans and that. So here's a little bit of information you should know about what would be supplied. I think I'm on the same page. You guys are seeing that? Okay. Yeah. So you see that there, what would be the supplied Personal information, including social security number, date of birth, name, address, email, and phone, your role in the organization, personal income, and then the business information, including everything from the bottom up, gross annual sales and net profit, date, country, and state business was formed. And even if you have a stated amount, you can put a stated amount, projections. You have a household income or you have a job here. This is what I project to make. Maybe I'll get a promotion and things like that. Think outside the box a little bit on that. Date, country, and state again, business, beneficial ownership, legal business name and structure. That's the structure part. Like I said earlier, it's best to have the LLC, excuse me, business tax ID or social security number for sole proprietors. Getting the word there. So here's this part too. This I knew this because this worked for me and others too. Typically, it does happen within 7 to 10 days. Sometimes there's a delay, so I've seen 7 to 14 days in some cases. And if we're trying to do multiple business credit cards at 0% interest and we're strategically stacking, sometimes it takes, I'd say 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks at times, on making sure all that gets issued and all that gets sent and you receive it. So here's another bank. Let me get into 1 second on the share screen. This is going to be First Citizens Bank. This is a great place to turn to, that you can get more credit lines. You can work on getting more limits on, and I'll guide you through on what to look here. And this is also very I would say it's even more geo-targeted than what you would see with something like a key bank in a way. Not as much, but this is more geo-targeted. They will want you to have more around 3 months or 6 months of time in business. It's still considered a startup phase, so don't let that put you off. Some of you are just getting started and going, well, I want to get in and I only have less than a month. Well, we can turn to another one of these. Or if you have great enough credit, and if it's on all 3 consumer credit bureaus, let's say you have a 700 on all 3, then we can do a multiple business credit card stacking program and see where we can pull credit from, because each credit card will pull from a different bureau. And I'm not going to get into like the Chase, the Bank of America does all this and this. I have that stuff. I've used it myself. And I know from where they're pulling from and what to do to then get credit limit increases. So you might be in a point now where your personal credit needs to have an increase first. That way we can get you business credit ready. If you're not business credit ready now, then you're going to want to have better personal credit limits and the stuff that we could resolve. And I believe I mentioned this earlier, and like with a key bank, I was going to say US Bank. Key Bank, I've done a lot with US Bank recently too. With Key Bank, them normally 700 plus credit profiles, 720 plus, 725. If you can get into a 725, 720 is like, okay. 725 for them is like, okay, you're in. Anything 751 and over, good to go, pretty much. So have that on that side, on the Equifax side, 700 minimums, but 720 plus is really, really the point that you want to be at, that and above. And I know if you don't have the credit profile, it's hard to. You may be able to leverage a credit partner that can assist. There's all of these other ways of working around this. So if you're trying to get creative credit-based financing, multiple business credit cards or personal credit cards on top of a loan, personal term installment loan, personal lines of credit, then we can look at using a credit partner who has stronger credit. And I can go through some of the details when it comes to a lot of that. So let's move over here to some of their cards. And before I go into some of the details on this, what I recommend you do is, again, open up a business checking savings account like we did with KeyBank. And from there, again, the sequence continues on what they would give you in a promotional offer and whatever they have going on within the banks. Every single one of them is different. So when you have that, you have that. With something like this, I've seen it where you can just go through it online, of course. The other one with a key bank, it's better to go through a bank manager, a relationship bank manager. This one, it's best to do it in an online. It could be in an offline setting. But online is what I've seen happen well. And that's something that you may get into. So before going into that, you would want to put at least $5K in a deposit for somewhere around 60 to 120 days. It can be a little bit lenient, but I'd say typically for the best results and time in business, 120 days of a deposit with 6+ months time in. That'll also factor in to getting a higher approval, and not just put $5,000 in, liquidate, or take that cash out of the account, withdraw it for personal or business reasons, but making sure that that money stays longer in the account and it carries over to the next month with the starting and ending bank balance. And if you added more to that account, even better. If we see more starting and better ending bank balances, even greater. You put 5,000 in, we saw at the end of this month, there's a remainder of 10 to 15,000. Even if it's not a big increase, that helps out a lot. And then your withdrawals were about 2,500 to 3,000. So the ratio there of how much comes in versus goes out is a huge thing. For them, they usually have one inquiry for each, their credit line, their business line of credit. And like KeyBank, they normally want you to have a 720 plus, and this is going to go through Experian and Equifax. So be cautious of going through first a KeyBank or this one first, and then turning over to a KeyBank. I always want to say US Bank. It's because it's larger and it's more what I'm familiar with and using a lot more of. And so be cautious of that. And again, this plays into the multiple business credit cards that we can stack on top of one another. So with them too, you normally don't want to have no more than 3 new accounts and no more than 3 hard inquiries in the last 6 months. So similar boundaries to what you see with a key bank. And that's pretty much it on that point. Okay, so with this here, let me move. Okay, we're in position. So the Premium Rewards Business Credit Card, you see here on the left-hand side, their new business card. This one, there's an up to 50,000 bonus points after you spend $4,500 in the first 90 days. So some of the other ones, like the KeyBank we went through, within the first 60 or so days, there's a reward there of 200 plus or so. This one here, you spend $4,500 in the first 90 days, you can get 50,000 or up to 50,000 in bonus points. So that's a huge thing. And everything that you're seeing here with any kind of cards, travel cards, cash, instant cash back, you have enough money to use this. You've accumulated 10,000, 20,000 from these cards. You can now use that to pay off expenses. You can use that for a vacation. Go to Disney World, go to Knott's Berry Farm, Six Flags, go anywhere you wish to go to. Take a little bit of time off for yourself. That's why it's so helpful to have these. I can't stress that out enough. I said this in other videos, not for this time. I don't want to go too deep into that. But for this one, you can earn 3 points for every dollar spent on restaurants, advertising, and travel. So not just one. You would commonly go through and use restaurants, advertising, especially in your business. You're using a lot of that. Or if you're not heavy on it, maybe you have low overhead, you're trying to limit it to referral basis or a few other things. Or you have a model right now where if you advertise your business, you cannot make enough in profits. I was in the position, like many of you, where I couldn't run to online advertising in different channels because my markup costs and my inputs and outputs wasn't giving me a high enough ROI yet, let alone freeing up and having enough operating cash flow. And so the profit margins, it was just very thin. It was cutting in. And then my expenses in the beginning stages were eating up into and going over my income. So that happens with a lot of us at times. And that was in the very beginning more than anything. So I understand that. And the cost of fulfillment, when you have a lot of expenses in the business and you have to restructure things and the profits are already thin and you can't even pay those things down or pay those things off, you're going to have a lot of problems you run into. So, and right now, if you guys are trying to advertise, the costs are increasing. I keep up to date with a lot of this. I run them myself, a lot of organic stuff. I shut them down. I turn them on. I do a lot of testing myself. And I'm like that back end guy who's pulling the strings. And just think of me that way as an underwriter, pre-underwriter, the guy in the back end, silent partner. But I'm the broker. I understand how all of that works and I process documentation. So I balance a lot of this stuff very, very well. And it's just because I'm very punctual, disciplined, and I have a calendar and the right team behind me as well to help out with quite a bit of this. Occur 1.5 points. I was going to say occur. 1.5 points per $1 spent on all other purchases. Oops. I didn't want to exit out. I have little tabs and I have to be cautious of clicking them, not exiting out. So almost accidentally there. So 18.74% to 27.74% available variable APR on purchase and balance transfers. You get a $0 introductory fee for the first year, then a $95 annual fee, which is very nominal and very common that you'll see a lot of these. You can view pricing information and offer details. The reward business credit card, instead of getting 50,000 like we saw up here, you will look at getting 10,000 in bonus points after you spend just 3,000 off 4,500 and in the first 90 days. Earn 3 points for every dollar spent, more or less there. Gas, and 2 points for every dollar spent on restaurants and travel. Earn 1 point per $1 spent on all other purchases. 0% introductory APR on purchases and balance transfers for 9 months. Then it's 16.74 to 25.74% available APR. This one doesn't have an annual fee attached. Cash rewards business credit card. You see there, it gets even thinner at the 100. So it shows you your higher card and where you would want to begin, and then what else you can get within their line of products. So I won't read through all of this, but you can see 0% introductory APR on purchase and balance transfers for 9 months. Similar, 16.74, more or less, 25 to 7.4%. No annual fee on that one too. Low interest business credit card, 0% introductory. This one's different for the first 12 months on those purchases and balance transfers. Then it's less, so 14.74 to 23.74%. Variable APR. Separate your business and personal expenses, and there's a little bit more there. So let me get into here very quickly, and then we're going to close up shop. Go here to business financing. Short and long-term small business solutions has a quick overview there. And you have the business loans on the left hand and business lines of credit on your right. Here, get easy access to funds that can help you manage fluctuations in cash flow. For those of you who have never had a line of credit, and I know I didn't say there's so much content to cover. We're 46 minutes in. I want to get you out of here before an hour. I want to get done in the next 5 minutes. And I could create so much more of this and other things. But it's applying it. It's applying yourself as a business owner. And what I always value, first and foremost, is your loyalty. I value that more than everything. Loyalty to me is absolutely it. I'm a Libra, like I said. I'm well-balanced. Well, you could say we're more of the intellectual, internal, cerebral, I guess, type of person. Others are different. But I turned out to be that. My younger brother, I wouldn't say is more extroverted on that side. I'm kind of like I don't want to use the word brains, but my family, I do a lot of that stuff. And so I'm able to work out a lot of stuff internally, data engineering, looking at the data points, all this other stuff, knowing how to grow an actual business from the bottom up. Those things I've learned through so much time and experience doing these things. And there's so many different businesses where you build it differently depending on the type and the nature of it and the market conditions. Of course, right now it's hard. But business lines of credit, you can use it to bridge cash flow. It's not exactly like a account receivables or unpaid invoices. So if you've had unpaid invoices, if you have inventory, if you have account receivables, unpaid invoices there, then we can use that to bridge cash flow gaps. So if you're looking for a higher line of credit or others that are up to 100,000 without these locations, I'm able to help there too. In the fintech lender world, banks are already hard. They're limiting that. A lot of them, like a Chase and others, would like to see 750 plus credit profile, if not 751 and above, for a majority of the times. Higher time of business, higher revenue. Fintech lenders, they're capping out right now at 55K, if not 35K, where you're probably doing 100,000 a month, thinking you could get a line of credit. You may be able to if you're in the right industry. You're not meeting just the minimums, or you're generating 400,000 to 500,000 in annual gross revenue. Other industries are different, and you might not even be lendable in a specific industry, higher risk. But you might just only get 25 to 35K, 25K to 55K, or 20K at that point. So you have to then think, well, 20K here, but then over here I have a key bank, and then I have a First Citizens Bank that's willing to approve me up to 50K, 20K, 50, 100, 120K. That's not even considering business credit cards. Now, in what time you got those, that's a different thing, and how you use them. Now you have these 0% interest business credit cards, and we stack 50 to 75K. You're getting close now to 200K and above. What could your business do with 200,000? What could it do with 100K, 50K? You're just getting started. 50K is not even enough for a startup. I've been there. Now my overhead is less. My expenses become a bit less than other types in traditional brick and mortar, and I know how to handle that stuff and keep it low and how to restructure. But 50K to pay other bills, you have personal expenses, you have other obligations. Like 50K, break that down for me monthly, how that looks like, and where that 50K is going towards in different needs. Okay, $2,500 there. There's another $3,500 there payment. And then you forgot about the 5,000 here. You have your home, you have this other stuff you got to pay back. 50,000 like that, you're done. And then you haven't accounted for that cushion. You haven't really thought about, until it's convenient, until, I'm running low on this stuff. Excuse me, I'm going to need more. Now, you should have money when you don't need it. That's why these credit lines, that's why these business lines of credit are so helpful, especially for inventory reasons. For inventory that you need a higher amount of, business lines of credit are helpful. That's why I would say they're more helpful than a credit line itself. But business credit cards right now I'm seeing it's surpassing business lines of credit. So that's what would be the focus on, and getting a term loan on top of it to get the most, even if it's used for inventory and not variable or fixed reasons. Inventory is more of a variable. It fluctuates, like payroll and other things. Equipment is more of a fixed cost. You know what's coming out of that monthly, and you know what to expect if you got new equipment, leased equipment, all this other stuff. So here you see business loans, business lines of credit, handle periodic borrowing needs, borrow, repay, and then borrow again. Very standard stuff. So if we click through there, borrow again and again, pay for what you need, get overdraft protection, find a branch, take care of your business, access those funds, know your limits. And there's a bit of that too. Control business expenses, deposit money from everywhere. What it says you can use it for, yes, usually you can use it for anything. Your business can use it for like a lot of the things that we just mentioned. I won't go into it again. And for freeing up, having more cash flow on hand. And it's revolving, so that's a huge bonus for you when it comes to a line of credit. Yes, they offer that. And make sure at your local branch, what's the difference between a small business loan and a line of credit? I won't go into that now. When you need to personally guarantee, your personal guarantee may be needed depending on the size and the type of your credit request. And so that's what a lot of the times we need to live with, is we have to supply a personal guarantee. So even if that's the case, that is okay. But that's pretty much it that I wanted to mention in this. Oh, I didn't mention this other part too. As to open up a merchant account, this way you can open up more access to products. So with a Key Bank, with the First Citizens Bank in other locations, that's what you would like to do. Now, let me flip over to my other screens here to make sure that I didn't miss anything. I don't think I have, and I'll close up here. I do have PNC Bank. I won't talk too much about them. I just wanted to make the focus on the other two that we just went into. But like I said earlier, they're going to want more of an established relationship. Usually they're going to want 2+ years minimum is what they're going to be asking for. First Citizens Bank, like we went into, to recap on that, usually 3 to 6 months plus, more than 6 months, and then stated income, just projected revenue on that and what we could be applying to. PNC is a bit different. Bank of America, similar with 2+ years, and they're going to want to see consistent deposits on those and activity in the accounts. So that pretty much covers everything. I do want to make a quick check just to make sure I covered everything. Excuse me. So recapping, we went over Key Bank. Do you have to have a previous relationship with them? And I went into this with them previously some time ago, and going through it internally and staying up to date on a lot of this. But Equifax soft pull internally, you do need a FICO score normally of 720 and above. Most institutions look at Experian, but this one here is Equifax. And an assessment model, they'll look at FICO 8s a lot of the times. For mortgages, it can be the 4s, the 5s, it can be less than that. But for credit, you normally see FICO 8s and those establishments. So we went over that. Having a registered agent, going through a place like, here, let me push this here. Like a Regis here. I don't want to go into my account right now or go into all that in too detail. But here, you can search for an office space in your location. So you can type in what you would need to have there. You can even reach out there, but it's very seamless. It's very straightforward. You'll find the location. And if you're very serious about the business and making sure everything is there, that's what I would get. For phone calls and other stuff attached to or non-attached to, I'll make sure you guys know where to turn to. I won't spend too much time on a lot of that right now, but there's things like Ring Central. There's other locations out there to turn to. The hard pulls we covered with like a Key Bank, we went over. Normally, they don't want to see 3 new accounts open in the last 6 months, and on the hard pulls, no more than 2 in the last 6 months generally. How much they can lend up to. We went over that. Articles of organization, EIN letter, and a few other things at that amount. First Citizens Bank, we went over what they would request up to and how much up to, and what would be required there. Now, let me end this actually with a few bits of details on what would be then required for having an optimized credit profile and what a lot of these banks are looking for. And it varies depending on where you turn to. So here, I'll just leave it like this. I can go over to this next part with you. So when you're trying to do more of this is in terms of credit card stacking. When we're trying to add multiple business credit cards at 0% interest and we're going to higher tier banks, there are a couple of things to look for. Of course, like I said, they're looking at the FICO 8 scoring model. And normally you want to have above 700, ideally 720 and above. But some of these higher banking institutions are going to require you to have 725 plus. They want to see a lot of that. Less than 3 hard inquiries on each individual bureau in the last 6 months. And this is for the strategic business credit card stacking that we can help with. And others, like I said, no more than 2 to 3, no more than 3. Others would like to see no more than 4. But at that point, you're going to a lesser tier. You're likely getting a lot less of an approval if you can get any at all. They don't want to have more than 3 open personal accounts in the last 6 months. That is huge. Any new accounts will hurt you more than they do any good. And you're having more than 3, there's a lot of activity. There's a lot of movement. Now, when we look at those accounts, that'll give me a different story. Less than 20% utilization normally on every single revolving personal account. That is normally what they're looking for. If you have less than 10, the 800 club, less than 5%, great. Keep it as low as possible. Others would say no more than 40% on each revolving account. So all of those that we're looking through. But with the top tier, you want to have less than 20, less than 10% in this market is what I would say. No more than 2 late payments in the last 2 years, or excuse me, in the last 7 years, and 0 in the last 24 months. So it wouldn't really make sense to have it within the 2 years. That's a little less. They want to look for a premium or a platinum type of profile. So they're going to say normally within the last 7 years. And that's hard to do for many of us when we use our credit so much and we get ourselves in a bad pinch. And 0 in the last 24 months. That's what those banks are looking for. No derogatory marks. That's very standard. Collections, charge-offs there, bankruptcies, public judgments, etc. is what it stands for. So that's more or less what I wanted to cover in this. And to get 50K to about 250K with a lot of these institutions, they're going to want to make sure that you have the 700 plus FICO credit score or higher, at least 2 credit cards that have been open for a year. Others would like to see 1 is, but 2 normally is it. 1 major bank card trade line limit with at least 5,000. With personal loans, I normally see 3,000. Have at least 1 or 2, a lot of the times 2 open revolving accounts. So have those 2 credit cards too as well that have been open for at least a year. Others would like to see 2+ years. No collections, no charge-offs, no late payments, no bankruptcies at all, even showing on the file. No charge-offs there, as I mentioned. Utilization, normally underneath 15%. So 20% is one thing, but if you're getting lower, you're getting a higher approval amount. 100%, 10% less. 100% plus, 5% less. 2 to 3 inquiries or less in each bureau have at least 4 years of age history. That's a big premise. I said 2 years a little bit earlier with certain requirements, but 4 years plus is best. And there's still a lot more that I haven't shared with you yet. That's some stuff that I can share with you in time and specific to your situation on credit requirements for specific services. If you have auto loans, and does it include mortgages? And if you didn't have a mortgage, but you had this, you had 2 years of time in business with an LLC, and you had 1 open revolving account with a limit of this. And if you had 12,000, what could it then look like? The approvals on that and what we can then do. But with the credit card stacking that I've done plenty of, I've helped out myself to do this as well as with others. But let's say we were to do a Wells Fargo, for example, and we did up to 100,000 and no docs. We could do that online. Those come with PGs normally. And then after that, could we then look at a US bank? Or then can we look at a key bank? So it just depends on where they're pulling from and where then we need to turn to. So another example to this is like you go to a Chase. I have Chase, that's my primary bank. I have high limits with them now. I have a relationship with them. But be cautious that your banking activity is correctly done in your business, because I see a lot of people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Be cautious of your checks, be cautious of bouncing checks, be cautious of depositing, all of this stuff. You have to be cautious with the activity. Otherwise, you'll see closed accounts and you'll go to another bank you're unsure of, or you thought this was it. You find out that's not the best thing to do. Is it temporarily? Is it not? But let's say with your credit profile, we were able to go to a Chase Bank, and this is varying depending on your file. And we were able to do between 10 to 20K. We did 15K, let's say. And then after that, we'll go to a Bank of America to apply for a business credit card. We have multiple applications we can pull all at once, boom, boom, boom. And I'll get into this in a little bit more on how that all goes. But then we can go to a PNC bank to apply for their business credit card. So that's the advantage. So you have PNC, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. Don't always just go to them directly that way. If we can add multiple amounts at the same time, where we go, okay, 35K here, then there's another card with Chase Bank, 20K, boom, boom, boom. Now, instead of 50K total, you're getting 75 to 100,000 or so. See how that works? And then go to Truist would be another one, and then try to apply for their credit card. And we can do it in a specific order. And depending on your file, we might have to substitute that with the US bank. There's probably a Barclays out there, or there's a different variety of them, and go to them. Your credit will be pulled, and it's usually a hard inquiry at that stage, but they're not opened or they're not attached to any open accounts. And so we can remove those inquiries and then repeat the process. So that's more the gist of it. I can go into this in even more detail. I don't want to go through it too much. I do believe I covered everything. I had a few notes here to go through, and I covered not all the data points that you need to know. And there's things that constantly change. So I'll keep you up to date on this. And since I have an established relationship with them and other banks, I'm able to get access to a lot of that information, even more of. But yes, that stuff is covered. Have the relationship with them. With their Citizens Bank, it's not necessarily needed. There's more of a online version to do that, and what is possible there. Okay, so yes, that'll cover everything. Yeah, that'll cover everything that I have here. I didn't miss anything. Hopefully you got value from this content. All information I'll leave for you down below in the description. And there you can get started. There will be the questionnaire form to check and to go through, and what you need to know about what you would qualify and what you wouldn't. I'll show you a lot of that material, and it's going to be very well put together for you. It's customized. And yeah, all other information again down below in the description. If you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and do so. Click that bell notification icon so you do not miss any future content I'll be coming out with. And if you enjoyed, like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I'm very grateful and thankful of your energy time now, and I'm very supportive of you and you as the person and you as the business owner. And I do truly care about your progress in many ways, not just the funding world. And you can share this with others who you probably don't even know about, who would need a hand. They need more of an educational approach in going like, okay, I heard about KeyBank, I heard about First Citizens, I heard about Wells Fargo doing this, but I'm unsure about if I should do it on my own, or should I do it in a more strategic way? If I have my credit scores on all three like this is what's on my report. Those are a lot of the things that I help out people with, and the revenue collateral backed. So it's depending on the situation. Gerardo, appreciate you. Thank you for being in here, and yourself as well as everybody else. Thank you again for joining me today. I'm quite wiped out. I'm tired. You can only imagine. I don't talk much to begin with. I talk slowly. I'm the slow eater in my family. That's who I am. I'm the one who's like last. I'm so appreciative and grateful when I eat. Like I tune out things. I don't have to talk much because I'm so cerebrally like involved in my meal, and so thankful that every bite I take, I savor it, whether it's savory or not. Every single bite I'm putting into my body, I'm giving it more nutrition. I'm strengthening my body, and I look at food as a way of fueling you as a person, and being thankful that you had a meal to eat, even just a cracker. Like not a lot of people in this world get a chance to eat food, and you cannot take that for granted. Having a meal, whether it's at the end of the day or not, and not taking others for granted, no matter how stubborn, how arrogant, cocky they may be, they're going through something. And if we could work on character, if that needs to then change, okay, that's a whole different topic. But having the right values, beliefs, attitude, effort, a lot of that matters to me immensely. And the relationship, the loyalty. There's people who are very disloyal, people who come off like they maybe, but you really find out that they're not. Their actions speak louder than words. The way they said something. I'm not good at saying my words since I'm Salvadorian Mexican American. I'm predominantly speaking English. Speak Spanish, read it, write it. I grew up in Orange County, California, so you can say I'm more whitewashed. Sometimes the words in Spanish come and they go till I say it more often. Then I come back to it. But yeah, that's everything that I wanted to mention. Appreciate you all. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll speak to you all in the next one. Take care.